Have you ever had this amazing moment of awareness about your life in which you could suddenly see something that you had been doing as long as you could remember no longer fit who you are? Wow. Well, you finally saw it, and that must have been the hard part. And now that you can see it, you can transform it, right? Not so fast. It's great to finally have the awareness, but awareness isn't all you need because awareness alone doesn't equal transformation. With awareness only, you would be missing an important ingredient vital to true transformation. Well, what do we need other than awareness to make transformation really happen? Stick around and find out. Hi, I'm Hope. I'm the author of the book, The Creative Toolbox, a practical guide to discovering and using your creativity. And I love helping people explore intuition, creativity, and self-awareness for a freer, more conscious life. To help more people access this information, please like and share this video and subscribe to my channel. When we have a moment of awareness about ourselves, this is a great step. But it's important to not confuse awareness with transformation. Many people, whether they're aware of it or not, believe that once they understand themselves and what they want, that change is on the horizon. But awareness does not create transformation. Awareness is seeing what was standing in your way. Transformation is the effect of taking action to make changes. For example, you discover that many of the things that you did were because you thought you were being a nice or responsible person, when in reality, you did them because you constantly sought others' approval. You now see the pattern. This is great, but a few days go by, and you're in a situation in which your friend disapproves of you because you chose to go to the gym rather than go out to lunch with her. You get that familiar tension in your body, and you decide to abandon your agreement with yourself to go to the gym to please your friend. It doesn't mean the awareness is gone, but you haven't yet transformed. Now, many people get frustrated by this because they want immediate change to happen. They think, I understand why I do this. I see the pattern in my childhood. I know what my belief is, but they don't understand why nothing changes. Well, they see the pattern all right, but the conditioning is still there. They don't consider that the conditioning developed over many years of repetition. So if it took a lot of time to become conditioned, it usually takes a lot of time to condition themselves with a new pattern. This is the gap between knowing and becoming. First, you follow the unconscious pattern. Then you become aware of the pattern as you follow it. Then you start noticing the pattern before you follow it. Then you stop. Then sometimes you make a different choice. And over time, you make a different choice more regularly. This whole process is the transformation. Awareness is just the first step. And by just the first step, I don't mean to belittle awareness. Because without awareness, there is no possibility for change. But once something can be observed, it can eventually be changed. Because now the pattern is visible, and visibility is what makes transformation possible. Another reason why awareness doesn't immediately lead to transformation is that the nervous system is designed to seek out what is familiar and predictable. In other words, the nervous system would rather choose an experience that is familiar than one that would be better for you. For example, if someone was brought up in an environment which was very critical, where approval needed to be earned and love was conditional, once the person grows up, they may consciously want healthy relationships. But let's say they meet someone who is calm, emotionally available, and consistent. But when they are around that person, they feel bored, uncertain, and disconnected. But when they meet someone unpredictable or emotionally unavailable, they find this person somehow compelling. Why is this? Not because the relationship with the second person is healthier, but because it feels familiar. The nervous system recognizes the pattern and chooses the familiar over what would be better for them. It's important to mention that because even if something is familiar, it doesn't mean it's aligned. This is because many people assume that if something feels uncomfortable, it must be wrong. But sometimes we may feel discomfort because it is new. If you have spent years people-pleasing, you may feel uncomfortable the first time you put up a boundary. If you always ignored your own needs, you may feel uncomfortable when you first begin meeting them. If you've grown up in a chaotic environment, you may feel uncomfortable when your environment begins to become peaceful. The nervous system is on alert during unfamiliar experiences, not because they're necessarily wrong, but because they're unknown. Once you have the clarity of awareness, the nervous system may respond with anxiety, doubt, resistance, or second guessing. At this point, many people believe that this response must mean that they are making the wrong decision. Well, maybe not. It may just mean that you are stepping out of a very familiar pattern which made you feel safe because you've survived it. But you have no such history with the new pattern. So how can we possibly transform when the nervous system is trying hard to hold on to the familiar? By teaching the nervous system that new patterns are safe, not by force, but through repetition. You set one boundary, then another. You speak with honesty. You honor what your needs are. You see that you survive. And then over time, the nervous system has evidence that you will survive this new pattern. It recognizes this new choice as okay. Then what once felt as uncomfortable becomes normal. What once felt frightening becomes natural. And in time, what felt impossible becomes achievable. This is another reason why awareness alone is not transformation. You may know exactly what needs to change, while your nervous system is still trying to pull you back toward what it recognizes. The work is helping familiarity catch up to truth. A third reason why awareness does not automatically lead to transformation is insecurity over identity. What does this mean? Well, identity is a collection of the beliefs, roles, habits, and stories that help you understand who you are. You may then cast yourself in a role such as the responsible one, or the peacemaker, or the achiever, or the savior, or the uncreative one, or the unconfident one. Whether or not your chosen identity is true, at least it gives you some semblance of certainty. You have an answer to the question, who am I? But when you have an experience of awareness, that certainty begins to unravel, and this feels unsettling. Because after that awareness, the old doesn't work for you the way it used to. For example, if you have a long history of people-pleasing, you become aware of it and start setting boundaries. You don't always say yes anymore. You don't look for approval from others. At first, this does not feel at all empowering. It mostly feels downright confusing because this identity you long ago established is disintegrating before your eyes. You don't connect with this old version of yourself like you used to do, but you're not quite the new version of yourself either. You are in the in-between space. This can feel really weird. You may think, I don't know who I am anymore. What do I even want? Why does everything feel up in the air? I thought growing was supposed to make me feel great. This is the gap between the old and new identity. The old self is starting to dissolve. The new self is still in process. So maybe it feels like a problem. But really, the signs are that change is in the works. But this unstable feeling can be so uncomfortable that people choose to go back to their old ways because they felt familiar. and they could assume an identity. They feel safer with the expired but known than the uncertainty. For example, if someone quits a job that doesn't fit them, they feel free at first. Then they feel lost. They're tempted to go back to the job, not because it will fit them any better, but because the feeling of uncertainty was hard to tolerate. When we imagine what growth will feel like, we expect that we will feel more confidence, certainty, and excitement. Sometimes we do, but more often, growth makes us feel ambiguous, vulnerable, disoriented, and even grief-stricken. Because while the old patterns felt limited, at least they were familiar. It's important to know that insecurity about identity is not a lack of growth, but it's often a stage of growth. The real problem is expecting to instantly know your new identity after letting go of an old identity. The next step isn't always to find the new identity. It's often learning to stay present as one identity dissolves and a new identity slowly emerges. That space feels unstable, but it's often where the deepest change begins. Another reason that awareness doesn't lead right into transformation is that while that moment of awareness is a breakthrough, and it can suddenly feel profound and life-changing, the same situations and fears show up. The same automatic habits fire up and the same emotional triggers are activated. But because the human mind lives for big, dramatic moments, we recall the realization, the insight and situation which caused the breakthrough. We celebrate the big moment, but we forget about what's more important to transformation, the many small choices that we make after the great awareness. These small choices are what really reshape us. So when someone has that big breakthrough moment, when they realize they need firmer boundaries, they need to follow up with the small choices. They say no once, they feel guilty. They say no again, they feel guilty again. But they continue anyway until months later, they have transformed their relationships. Again, the transformation wasn't the revelation. The transformation was the repetition. As we discussed, it took many repetitions of the old pattern to form the strong habit that it is. So how could we expect a transformation to happen in a single moment of awareness or a day? In fact, the repetitions made the old habit so ingrained that real change often requires creating new repetitions that are stronger than the old ones. So what does repetition look like? Well, it rarely looks dramatic, but it might be speaking honestly one more time, listening to your intuition again, choosing rest instead of pushing out your last bit of energy, setting another boundary, forgiving yourself after a setback, or going back to the drawing board when something you tried didn't work out, and doing it over and over again until it starts to feel natural and, dare I say, your default. And then you can feel that a transformation has occurred. Now, many people quit too soon because they make the mistake of believing that repetition means lack of progress. They think, I already learned this. But learning it and living it are two different things. It may take months or years of practice until you have integrated the lesson, not because you're not making progress, but because repetition is needed before change can happen. A musician does not become skilled by learning theory one time. They become skilled by practicing over and over again. It is the same with transformation. In essence, most people are waiting for a breakthrough when what they really need is practice. And finally, awareness is not immediately followed by transformation because we first need to go through the process of trusting the gap, which I touched on earlier. As I said, trusting the gap is about learning to stay present in the time between an old life and a new one. You know going back is no longer your direction because it doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't feel right anymore, and you no longer fit into the identity. But you don't know how to move forward yet because new habits haven't been established. New identities are not yet stable, and new directions are not clearly seen yet. It can be the most uncomfortable part of transformation for many of us. This is because most of us don't appreciate how much of the certainty we once felt came from our old identity. We knew how to behave, what part to play, and what people could expect from us. Once the old identity starts to dissipate, we may feel lost, impatient, vulnerable, and directionless. As mentioned, these feelings can be misinterpreted that something is wrong, but many times they are signs that the transformation process has begun. Many of us may abandon the transformation process here because the human mind prefers answers to uncertainty. Well, how is the trusting gap abandoned? By forcing a new identity, rushing major decisions, seeking constant reassurance, and returning to familiar patterns. Not because these choices are right, but because it is difficult to tolerate this in-between phase. The old self may have been limiting, but at least it was known. This gap period may be mistaken for a period of emptiness. However, this is not the case. It is an organizational period in which many important things happen. It is a time when old assumptions weaken, deeper values emerge, intuition becomes easier to access, and new possibilities are realized. But these things take time to form. If we rush this period because we feel very uncertain, we may never discover what is trying to emerge. Consider all the gaps found in many natural processes, like the change of season, the pause between inhaling and exhaling, the silence between musical notes. But these gaps are important for what comes next to happen. It is the same with personal transformation. We do need to accept that not every stage is meant to feel clear-cut, and the gap isn't a passive waiting period either. We continue to live as honestly as we can through the uncertainty. It means affirming that you don't have the whole picture of what's next, but you know what isn't true for you anymore. And often, that's enough. You don't always need the whole story. Transformation often feels like being between stories. The old chapter has ended, but the next one hasn't yet fully been written. I've put together a free one-page reflection guide called the Knowing to Becoming Guide. If this video resonated with you, you can download it using the link below. Well, that's it for now. Please like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to my channel to know when the next video drops. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more tools for exploring your intuition, creativity, and self-awareness for a freer, more conscious life. See you soon.